America would have been judged, you all, listen to me, if Kamala had won because of what she represents and her policies, America would have been judged. Trump being in office delays us at least 4 years. I don't know what's going to happen after the 4 years, because sometimes people can turn back. But I do know it delays. Thank God we got 4 years to breathe. At least, and maybe God may give us grace beyond that. But that was the reasoning, the purpose behind President Trump's victory on last week.
Apparently, this preacher has no knowledge of American history, because if he did, things this ignorant wouldn't come out of his mouth. Because here's my question, brother preacher. If God was going to judge America for electing Kamala Harris because you disagree with her policy, then isn't God a little late in terms of judging America? Because how is he going to judge? I need to ask God some questions. Because if God was going to destroy America, judge America, punish America for electing Kamala Harris, I need to know, where was God's judgment with the genocide of Native Americans, the land theft through violent conquest, forced removals like the Trail of Tears, and broken treaties, how Native Americans were dispossessed of their ancestral land, mass killings, campaigns of slaughter like the Wounded Knee Massacre and the Sand Creek Massacre, all part of efforts to exterminate indigenous populations. Where was God's judgment then? Where was his judgment with biological warfare, intentional distribution of smallpox infected blankets to indigenous communities? Where was God's judgment on those policies? Where was God's judgment on the enslavement of Africans, on chattel slavery, when millions of Africans were kidnapped, shipped to America, and subjected to forced labor under dehumanizing conditions? Where was the judgment of the Lord? If you're telling me he was going to judge America for electing Kamala Harris, where was his judgment when there was torture and abuse of enslaved Africans who had to endure physical violence, sexual exploitation, psychological abuse, family separations, when enslaved families were torn apart with spouse and children sold to different plantations and different owners? Where was God's judgment when we had to deal with Jim Crow and racial terrorism, with legalized segregation, with laws that allowed institutionalized racism in every aspect of Black life, denying us access to education, to housing, to public spaces? Where was the judgment of God when the policy, since you want to talk about policies, when the policies of America, both on the Democrat and the Republican side, were the normalization of lynching, when thousands of Black men and women and children were tortured and murdered in public spectacles of racial horror? Where was the judgment then? Where was the judgment when white mob violence was running rampant in America? The Tulsa Race Massacre, the Rosewood Massacre, massacres all across the South that destroyed Black communities and Black wealth. Where was God's judgment when mass incarceration took this nation by storm, racialized policing, disproportionate arrest and convictions of Black people, stop and frisk policies that perpetuated systemic inequities? Where was the judgment of God when we were exploited for prison labor, modern day slavery through forced labor in prisons that disproportionately impacts Black people? Where was the judgment of God, brother preacher? Where was the judgment of God on the policies of sanctioning extrajudicial killings, police brutality, state sanctioned murder of unarmed black people, including innocent children? George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Tamir Rice, and the list goes on. Where was the judgment of God with the allowance of vigilante violence, lynch mobs, and individuals like the killers of Ahmaud Arbery that perpetuate extrajudicial killings of black people? Where was this judgment? Where was that? How come America was able to avoid that judgment, but they weren't going to be able to avoid judgment if they elected Kamala Harris? Where was the judgment of God when it came to medical apartheid, forced sterilization, widespread sterilization of black women without consent, the Tuskegee experiment, black men deliberately left untreated for syphilis to study the disease, the neglect of native health? Where was the judgment of God in all of these injustices that have gone on in America since there's been in America? But you want us to believe God ignored all of this over the last 400 years and didn't judge America for any of these evils. But had it elected Kamala, we would have been judged. And you, as a black man, are sitting there thanking God for the election of a pathological liar, a 34-time convicted felon, a serial adulterer, an accused and adjudicated rapist, an unrepentant racist. You're thanking God for his election when he told you that he wants to give police immunity to murder your children. When he told you he wants to tax schools and give reparations to white people. But you're thanking God for his election because we avoided God's judgment. I guess you must worship the same white God as the evangelical Republicans do. Man, if you guys go to churches like this, y'all need to get out and get out quick.